Hey everybody, it's Paul Ramsey with Dr. Manny St. Victor, and today on Hypnotic Thoughts, we're talking about improved healing with hypnosis. Typically, we tend to spend most of our time talking about the power of the mind to create different behaviors, different choices, but today we're going full on into the medical world, which is why I'm so grateful to have Manny with me, because we're going to lean on you pretty heavily today, Manny. Are you ready?
I'll take it.
All right, so
don't make me sing the song. You know me, you know.
It won't be that painful. We don't have to go there.
All right, I'll spare you.
1999 study published by your alma mater, Harvard University. From the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, using hypnosis, this is the title, using hypnosis to accelerate the healing of bone fractures, a randomized controlled pilot study. Real short and simple, says here, 12 healthy adult subjects with a fracture in the ankle were recruited from an orthopedic emergency department and randomized to either a treatment or a control, 6 in the control, 6 in the treatment group. One subject randomized to the treatment group withdrew prior to the intervention. In the intervention, all 11 subjects received standard orthopedic care, including serial radiographs and clinical assessments through 12 weeks following injury. The treatment group received a hypnotic intervention designed to augment fracture healing, and that hypnotic intervention was individual sessions and audio tapes. Main outcome measures: assessments of fracture healing 12 weeks following injury, and the hypnotic subject's final questionnaires and test scores. So, you know, they gave them follow-up x-rays, and they asked the hypnotic subjects to fill out a questionnaire. The results showed trends toward faster healing for the hypnosis group through week 9 following the injury. Objective radiographic data revealed a notable difference in fracture edge healing at 6 weeks. Orthopedic assessments showed trends toward better healing for hypnosis subjects through week 9, including improved ankle mobility, greater functional ability to descend stairs, and lower use of analgesics in weeks 1, 3, and 9. Trends toward lower self-reported pain through 6 weeks. This sounds, I'm no doctor, so I'm going to ask you, this sounds like a very good outcome, yes?
Yeah. The only part that makes me ticklish is the part where they're saying the limited statistical power and the small size of the study.
Only 12 people. I mean, that's really small, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to see it repeated with a larger group so that I can get a nice tight p-value.
Tell me more about that. Like there's a lot of people don't know there's a lot more research about hypnosis out there than the average person would realize. I keep finding more and more of it, and you find more and more of it all the time. I look at it in a totally different way than you do. Like, how do you judge what studies you find to be credible and which ones you're not so sure about?
Oh, well, I use a functional model of mind. Okay, so based on perceptual control theory. So I think of the body as a bunch of control systems, like in cybernetic theory, all same thing, where the systems are competing with each other. One of those systems is going to be your neuroendocrine, well, psychoneuroendocrine system. So I look for studies that show changes in hormones and chemicals that I associate, and well, inflammatory factors that I associate with emotion. Because I think that's the pivot that a large part of empirical scientists, guys who don't necessarily, who are looking more for linear causality than systems-based approach, and a more dynamic systems approach, I tend to look for, you know, theories like coherence, waves, and just stuff that most people would not look at, but from a sort of a computer science point of view, a mathematical point of view. Okay. And when you look at that, it gives you the power to go look at things like oxytocin, look at some of the subjective data if you have enough reports, and to pay attention at pivot points. So in this particular case, the pivot point that I look at is what would lead, let's give the study sort of suspension of disbelief. Let's give the study the benefit of the doubt and say what would make the outcomes that we see there happen. Well, reporting less pain, we know there's tons of studies of hypnotic analgesia. We've seen surgeries done with hypnosis. No one's going to pretend to not feel a surgical cut. That would be pretty impressive. So we're like, okay, we could see that as a possibility. All right, so let's look through a different lens. When you're dealing with emotions, what is the role of emotions, personality, just the psychophysiological aspects on your cytokines, on inflammation? And there's an extensive set of studies that show that not only do personalities correlated with IL-6, which is one of your interleukins, associated with your tendency to be more inflamed. You look at stuff like depression is baseline inflammation. These are all chronic inflammation conditions. In psychiatry, we have a model like an allostasis model. People go crazy when you put just enough stress on them. And stress inflammation kind of, the cortisol not only tells you when you're emotionally stressed, social stress, but also tells you it's part of your inflammation cascade. So I tend to look at studies that, okay, what's the role of the cortisol? Well, what role could hypnosis play in cortisol? And hypnosis affects oxytocin, which is an anxiety hormone. So you bring down the inflammation overall in the system. Now, if you want to think about the fact that a human, we have intention. We can control our attention. We can control where our energy goes. I could choose not to get up and run. I could choose to eat and put more fuel in. So in this case, you're dealing with, is it possible that you can shift someone's intentions and their attention so that they're less inflamed? And if they're less inflamed, less of their energy is going towards a specific, not necessarily helpful inflammatory response, and more of it is going towards that directed healing response. So those are some of the things I think about. Several rabbit holes there, but I'm trying to see how could it be.
Yeah. And so when you see a study like this that makes you feel a little bit nervous because it's so small, you tend to give it the benefit of the doubt because what it's saying is in line with other sets of research and studies you've seen that show over and over again that we can use hypnosis for these things, right? So you're not as nervous about it. It seems to be what you're saying.
Exactly, because I want to see different universities, different countries, different mindsets, people using different paradigms, and see if there's a convergence of their findings where they might overlap each other conceptually. They might be using the same words, different words to mean the same sort of things. You hear my daughter?
I hear her.
She agrees.
Really present.
Amandi approves.
So, and then the other question I wanted to ask you is this is a shift, but so this came out in '99. Were you at Harvard in '99?
No, I was class of '95. In '99, I was in Chapel Hill Medical School.
So you were in medical school at that point. Okay, that's what I was really wanted to get to is, so you're in medical school. When in your medical school experience, were they talking about stuff like this? Were you ever told about using hypnosis to accelerate healing?
No. Even during my psychiatry training, it wasn't until towards the end, when we were looking at things like cognitive behavioral therapy and the different modalities of therapy, that I started to notice ways of breaking the thought process down into sub-elements.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, I mean, when I saw that this was from 1999, I was like, well, it's kind of an old study. And then I was like, well, but I sometimes I get a little too caught up in that stuff, maybe of like, is it still current? And you're like, well, it's a study, right? Like, does the timing of it matter?
I grab the pieces of it. I try to understand what was going on in research, like the research culture in that area during that time. Yeah. What were people doing to try to prove and disprove it? What other ideas came from it? What did the author go on to do afterwards? I try to look at all that just to get an idea if there was maybe even an agenda involved.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. All right, so just well worth thinking of. Bottom line, well worth thinking about. I mean, if you can take anything from this, I think it's the possibility that if you have a bone break, there seems to be this has potential as a way to help you heal faster and more effectively. If you're having a surgery, which would involve bones healing, you could maybe look into using hypnosis as a complementary tool to add to your process. So very cool to think about, and I think we've covered that enough. Thank you, Dr. St. Victor.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, we'll see you all next time at Hypnotic Thoughts. Have a great day.